What's up guys, it's Wasabi and I'm back with another review. Today we have a very special keyboard sent from Akko. But as always with the content on this channel, these are my thoughts, personal opinions and experiences with the product. As always, my reviews are focused on reviewing the product itself and not directly comparing one product against another. And today we have the MOD007 V3HE Year of the Dragon edition from Akko. Now here's a quick look at the packaging because that's what you pay for too. Inside the box you have this plastic cover which you can use as a keyboard cover. You get the instruction manual, includes a copper plate which allows you to change up your keyboard experience. I'll share more about that later. Coiled cable, a keycap puller and switch puller, additional keycaps designed in the theme of the Year of the Dragon, an Allen key and additional screws, and a layer of tape if you wish to do a tape mod, which is nice, but I imagine most people would use their own. And yep, that's pretty much all that's included inside the box. Now before we go any further, I'm gonna manage some expectations here real quick. The Year of the Dragon edition is a limited production run and the first Hall effect keyboard in their lineup that features an 8000Hz wired polling rate. Akko is rather well known for their custom mechanical keyboards. I've never actually got a chance to experience one back when I was into modding keyboards because their models were always sold out. Oh well. So there are a couple of unique things about what Akko did with this keyboard and I'll share a bit more on that later. The MOD007 V3HE Year of the Dragon ships out in batches. Latest shipping information can be found on their product page. And this keyboard goes for $198. Now let's talk about the design first because this thing looks like a work of art. This unique design is to celebrate the Year of the Dragon and just to share each animal year in the Chinese zodiac cycle happens every 12 years, which means the next Year of the Dragon would be in 2036. So don't expect another dragon themed keyboard like this anytime soon. It comes beautifully designed with cyan dragon themed keycaps. These are PBT die-sub keycaps with incredibly detailed designs by the designers at Akko. They are very shine resistant and feel rather smooth to the touch. Case is rather special for this keyboard. The folks at Akko mentioned that the design on the case was done for the very first time with a 3-tone anodization process that makes this incredibly detailed dragon design possible and much more resistant to scratches. So the build quality is fantastic. The keyboard feels very well put together right out of the box. The keyboard itself is very heavy and it weighs just about 2 kilograms. The textures of the prints on the case feel great and the engraving on the aluminum weight right here is very well done. Overall, this keyboard looks and feels expensive, which in my opinion matches up with the price. Oh, and by the way, if you play Valorant, the Obsidian Imperium Vandal is a perfect skin to match with this keyboard. Taking this keyboard apart, you got the Akko cream yellow magnetic switches. This keyboard has a gasket mount and has TPU double shot stabilizers that are supposed to help reduce keycap wobble. An FR4 plate, and this one comes pre-installed in the keyboard, and it's a good plate to give you a nice pop sound profile to your keys. A pour-on foam pad. They also include a copper plate for a stiffer typing experience with a higher pitched sound profile. Between the copper and the FR4 plate, there wasn't so much of a big change in the sound profile, and that's probably because of all the foam and padding in the build. It has an IXPE switch pad, pour-on case foam, the mid-frame, aluminum bottom case, and an aluminum weight. Now this is a 75% layout with a dedicated control knob. By default, pressing on the control knob switches between two modes, volume control and RGB brightness, but you can reassign different functions to it. Because additional keys on the right of the keyboard are not the same with every brand, you kinda need to get familiar with what each key does because the keycaps here are graphics instead of labels for their functions. Not a big deal, but just something to note. Connectivity wise, this board is wired only with a 8000Hz polling rate. This is a Hall effect keyboard, so of course you got magnetic switches, and stock as it is, the PCB does not support mechanical switches unless you replace it with Akko's MOD007 Flex PCBA, and it's nice to know that you have the flexibility to convert this to a mechanical keyboard if you have a collection of mechanical switches that you want to use. Akko cream yellow magnetic switches have a total travel of 4mm and an operating force of 50 gram force plus minus 10. Adjustable actuation between 4 to 0.1mm, rapid trigger setting between 2.5 to 0.1mm for individual keys. There's a mod tab function that lets you set up to 2 functions between pressing and holding down a key, and dynamic keystroke which allows you to set up to 4 different functions for 4 different distances, 2 on the upstroke and 2 on the downstroke on a single key press. And all these functions can be configured on Akko's Cloud Driver software. These cream yellow switches are smooth and have a good amount of resistance. I usually game with switches that feel slightly lighter, but with these, in my opinion, these feel pretty nice if you do a lot of typing. Now onto the performance and how it feels for gaming, which I'd imagine is what most people are curious about when it comes to Hall effect keyboards. With 8000Hz pulling rate and rapid trigger point set as low as 0.1mm, does the performance feel faster than the best Hall effect keyboard today? 8000Hz pulling rate on the keyboard is good to have, but it's not something you would notice. Honestly, using 2 keyboards back to back, one with 8000Hz and one with 1000Hz, it's hard to tell. But that's not to say that it's bad. I would say moving forward with gaming peripherals, it's always good to include high performance features where it's possible. Another thing you can use on this keyboard is what they call raw mode, which is a mode that is supposed to increase the response rate for optimal performance. Unfortunately, it applies only to 4 keys of your choice. I guess most gamers would use it on WASD. At this point in time, there are some issues with raw mode, so unfortunately I cannot comment much on how it feels, but on the bright side, Akko has mentioned on Twitter that they are working on an update. So in-game, the keyboard feels fast and responsive, even though you can go as low as 0.1mm for both the press and release distance of rapid trigger. It does cut off my movement when I do not intend it to. I find that having the downstroke distance set to 0.1mm and release set to 0.2 works best, but it's a bit of a bummer because when it comes to tactical FPS, how fast you come to a stop is a pretty big deal, and setting rapid trigger release at 0.2mm doesn't make this experience feel faster compared to some other keyboards on the market. But overall, most people will be more than satisfied with its performance. I would say that what stood out the most for me was how these cream yellow switches feel with a gasket mount. You get a bit of flex, and I would say it's an enjoyable typing experience for me. I would say that the typing experience here is what I enjoyed the most of this keyboard. The sound profile with the FR4 plate is nice. With the copper plate, it's just a little higher pitch with a lot less flex. Personally, I would use the FR4 plate for an enjoyable typing experience and use the copper plate for gaming, as I prefer not having so much flex in the keyboard. Just remember to recalibrate the switches on the software whenever you remove or replace the switches to avoid any issues. Comfort-wise, this keyboard is a thick build and the keys are pretty high. There are no adjustable feet on the back of the board, so I would recommend looking out for a wrist rest for a more comfortable experience. Now here's a quick sound test to give you an idea of what this board sounds like, both completely stock with 2 different plates. About the software, I don't really like it, and that's not because the software is buggy and does not work the way it's supposed to, but it just feels like there's a lot to take in. And the user interface looks clean, but you sort of feel overwhelmed with tabs and different fonts, which generally makes it feel very dated. The thing that bugs me the most is that after you confirm your actuation point and rapid trigger sensitivity, it saves your settings and jumps back to highlight a single key. And this can be a little annoying if you set the wrong actuation point and you want to make a quick change after confirming. I think they could do with a dashboard screen that highlights the main functions of what makes this keyboard unique and simplify the layout of the settings. RGBs, if you like RGBs on your keyboard, then this does not disappoint because there are a ton of preset RGB effects to choose from. But just note that you're working with solid keycaps, so you don't get to see much of the RGB lighting. It's just enough to notice, and I think that it's perfectly fine for a keyboard with an amazing design like this. My personal favorite effect is incline rain because from an angle it makes this keyboard look like a box of jewels. So what are some things that I like about this keyboard? The design, honestly, this is one of the more unique and creative designs for a keyboard I've seen. Celebrating the Year of the Dragon, I love the meaning behind the design and it looks like a work of art. I like how this keyboard feels, but more towards general typing more than gaming. It's nice to type on and you have the option to change up the typing experience with an additional plate. Do all kinds of mods to tune it the way you like it, and you also got the option option to purchase a compatible PCB that lets you use your collection of mechanical switches if you have one. And the last thing is the build quality is great. For a limited edition keyboard in this price range with build quality like this, I am very pleased. So what are some things I feel can be improved with this keyboard? A big portion of the Hall effect experience is with the software, because most people would actively fine-tune and try out different settings with the tech and with how the software currently is, and makes it difficult to recommend the board to gamers who are new to Hall effect keyboards. So in my opinion, the software needs some work. It's not unusable, but there is room for improvement. The coiled cable that comes with this keyboard is rather short. Right now my cable is completely stretched out, but it really depends where you place your system. I tried using other cables that I had, but the keys kept bugging out, so it's always best to use the cable that your keyboard comes with. Now this is purely based on preference, but I find the surface of the keycaps to be too smooth to use for competitive gaming. Casual gaming, I'm sure it won't matter much, but personally I prefer a decent level of grip when it comes to keycaps on my gaming keyboards. So final thoughts. I can't help but feel that this keyboard is more of a showpiece than something you would use every day, more like something that you want to keep in your collection. But don't get me wrong, this is not to say that this is a bad keyboard in any way. It just looks so good. If you want to have a keyboard that looks unique on your setup, this is definitely one to consider that offers a good experience for gaming and general use. I just love looking at this keyboard and appreciating the details in the design. I can't help but look at it every time I walk past my desk. However, considering the price, if you game more than anything else on your setup, there are more suitable performance-focused options out there. But if not, if you're just looking for a keyboard with rapid trigger and adjustable actuation that looks very unique, then this could be very well be it. Anyway, thanks for watching. I just finished my reservist term in the army and came out with 50 Shades of Tan. Just another 8 more years to go. Yeah, another 8 more years. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to support the channel, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.